Okay, we're back. That took slightly longer than I anticipated, but it shouldn't really matter on your end. It's just going to be a difference of an hour or so. We're back, and I think to spare you another 10-20 minutes of me circling an area getting lost in thought, we're going to talk about this level as a craft piece of what we might call game design, level design, multimedia art. Just talk about why it's nice. You know what we didn't do last video? You know what button I forgot exists? That's right, it's time to hit the needful button again. Whew, that is very blue, isn't it? Honestly, this is probably the best level to do that on in the sense of like, okay, they have a vision of their own this time. I don't really like it. I think it's very garish and cranked up to the extreme, and it doesn't quite work as well with the Halo engine. Like, you can see weird. If I go a certain way away, the surface of the water looks a bit funny, I found, and, you know, it has a bit of a HD texture mod look. Actually, not really. More generally, just what caught my eye before, which has always been there, is just look at that nice metallic sheen on their pads, and then we lose that here because they just get turned into, like, burlap men. That's just always, I've always loved the clanky, like, metal plate marines in the first game, and I wish that they kept going with that. You know, the Xbox was new and they wanted to show it off and get as much visual fidelity and power out of it as they could in a safe way, and the really like safe, good looking move they did in this game, which I think is quite striking, they probably considered it a kind of like half-assed like cheat to get something that looked half decent, but I think they really should have considered it like an aesthetic choice and stuck with it. Is that they just, like, the way that the metallic surfaces look so good in this game, like, you can see some on, like, the Master Chief, his visor, the Marine's armor, the sheen on that. I forget what exactly it is, but I know that that's just, like, a graphical effect that the Xbox could do, and, you know, it saved them having to put in, like, more detail to make certain surfaces look good. They could just crank this metallic kind of aspect all the way to 100 and get this, like, really nice sheen effect on everything, which looks very notable and striking. Like, there's a lot going on which doesn't like demand like a lot of power. Like, it's not texture detail, it's just, okay, make it metal and make it shine. The Xbox can do that, just make everything shiny metal. And yeah, I think that everything being shiny metal, like relatively low poly, shiny metal, relatively low texture detail, I think that's quite beautiful and quite striking and quite unique, and I frankly think that this game looks better than Halo Infinite, which is like the opposite of shine. Everything looks like drab 3D printed plastic. It's hideous. Again, if I were a serious editing person, which I intend to be soon, look forward to edited Anthony videos, I would bring up video comparisons just to show you how Halo Infinite looks in action. By the way, I don't own that game. What I did was I got Microsoft Game Pass for $1, like a trial run, beat Halo Infinite's campaign on Legendary. Then I refunded my dollar. Which I guess tells you how much respect I had for that thing. Enough to experience it, but not enough to feel like they deserved money. Well, I shouldn't even say that. Like, one of the guys who worked on this, or at least one of them, came back for Infinite to try to salvage it. They felt bad, and Microsoft presumably offered them a pile of money, and you have to feel bad. They're trying their best, and they're basically, you know, it's a leaderless and pointless endeavor. They're trying to mass produce what was a, you know, vision-driven artisan work, and that just can't work. It's not their fault. I'm not going to blame them. I do feel bad about that. Anyway, didn't this situation get way more interesting? I was just half-assing it, and now some guys killed my poor buddies and flipped my car. That's Halo just doing its thing. Oh hey, this guy made it. That's right, buddy, we got him. Hey, even got the killing hit. Good job, man. Me and you, we got this. Look at him go, he's pissed off. This game is just beautiful. You can't, like, make that shit up. Hang on, my controller seems to have... There we go. Or did I just get stuck on scenery? I don't know, but there we go. Isn't this guy great? So yeah, as I was saying, Halo Infinite looks worse because, you know, Halo's aesthetic went from metallic sheen to just, you know, like drab Unreal Engine aesthetic. Everything looks like hyper detailed foam or something, like foam and plastic. Just look at every surface in this game, the texture. You can't replicate this with more polygons or anything. If anything, that makes it impossible. It's simple effects placed on top of simple shapes, which I think creates, as I'm always saying, just it's conceptually more advanced than it is technically, and yeah, it creates a striking effect which is not replicated when you do this. Like, this is them trying to, like, texture detail, recreate what this has just by, like, being a weirdly rendered piece of metal. There are better surfaces in the game I could use. This one just happened to be here. Also, possibly on the Xbox it looked a bit different. That is something that I'll say. The original Xbox release of the game is slightly different to all of its PC ports just because of, quirks of the machine. The Xbox was always like a PC, but not a PC, so certain fine graphical effects weren't recreated one-to-one, but oh, look how dumb I am. You know what I should have pointed you to the whole time? Look at the top of the plasma rifle I'm holding. Look at that beautiful shine that actually, like, is mirroring the things around me with this really, like, polished metal effect. It's not like a simple mirroring or anything. It's actually like metal. It looks like it's very shiny and sleek in a certain way that real metals are. I really love that about this. And I just stuck a grenade on that poor guy. And we're stuck. This level gets more interesting. Okay, so the plot of this level, if you care, really if you care about, like, Halo just, like, as a coherent vision, don't go through me on, like, through it with me on, like, the museum tour pace. Play it yourself. It's very nice. It won't take you that long. Games had a lot more respect for your time back then. Just fire it up, play it one go, you'll have a great time. But yeah, this level, the way it's set up is you go to one really obvious, intuitive place, you just circle the island the way you were going, and you find yourself here. You go inside, a door locks, now what do? Guess you keep circling the island, but well, yeah, it's kind of the brilliance of this level, which is that, it feels way more open and inviting than it is. It's basically a giant circle with an interior and a couple of buildings, but it feels like way more is going on, and if you're a kid, just driving around this place feels gigantic. It's like the castle in Mario 64. It's very inviting, and just the fact that it all plays by its own rules very consistently and will just, like, respond intuitively and excitingly as you prod at it in any way you can think is very fun. Like, you can just ramp the Warthog off anything in this game and it will just... The physics never cheat to keep you out of places and so on. It's just very fun to engage with it on the most basic level. And this island is covered in things we can go shoot and so on. And let's take this one surviving Marine who's still angry about his buddy, presumably, and find him some stuff to shoot. And sorry if my voice is low, I just realized that. I feel like I have a tendency to just, like, choke off my own voice while doing these because no one else is around. It doesn't feel appropriate to raise my voice. Maybe that's a problem. I don't know. People tell me they like how I sound in these, so I'll try to keep going as I am, I guess. But yeah, we get... I don't really mean to, like, go on about game design stuff. I find that very tedious, but you can see that it's intelligently laid out here. The game basically tells me without telling me that rather than continuing to circle, I should check out what's going on up there because... they were guarding something, there's clearly something here, and if we go up, look, there's a gap in the trees. My car probably won't fit, I'll leave him there to cover my ass, and kill my way up here. I'm just genuinely struck by how nice this game looks. Do you get, like, the sense that he feels like a particularly three-dimensional object in a three-dimensional little world in a sense that we really just don't get with any new game? Like, I was saying Tarkov is pretty, and it is more three-dimensional than most new games, but still, this again, it reminds me of Mario 64 even more than it would something like Quake, in how I think it actually, like, nails the fundamentals while also being extremely pretty and purpose-driven. Again, Bungie feel like a company that should be compared to the Japanese more than most Western contemporaries. You know, they have a bit of Valve and a bit of id in them, but they were always coming from a different place in a way that superficially came to conclusions that looked a bit the same. But no, Bungie were always, you know, like very fine artisans making just these, you know, it's what I've always been saying. Halo was always a multimedia vision. They were using, you know, which part is the tool and which part is the point. It's the opposite to id and Valve, frankly. Like, Valve have always had rather ingenious integration of, basically they're clever and cute about writing plots that work around what you're doing in a game. Like, Half-Life is a plot about, like, experimentation and contrivance and hazards, basically. Like, it's a... Valve's games are excuses in, like, the main ones I consider to be Half-Life 1 and Portal. They're just, like, excuses or exercises in creating, like, funny, cute excuses for you to be in extremely video game-like circumstances. And there isn't really much meaning beyond that. They're just kind of, like, riffing on it, like, hey, isn't it quirky that this lab just, like, forces you into death puzzles? And Half-Life's tagline of, like, think, shoot, survive, I may have gone into this already. I think that it's interesting how there's, like, a trace of Halo in that tagline where it's like, yeah, like, Half-Life is this peak engrossing experience because it's just, like, pushing you on all fronts. You're pushed into this extreme situation where, you know, you aren't just, like, moving around shooting goblins or bouncing, bunny hopping through hallways for the sake of it. This isn't John Carmack brain. This is very much kind of a... It's meant to be... In a sense, it is Carmack brain, in the sense it's ultimately them just, like, putting together technical shit for you to kind of bluster your way through mechanically, but, you know, they wanted it to be more than just, like... They wanted to really think out more than, like, obviously in Quake you do more than shoot, in Doom you do more than shoot, you navigate, you move, there's precision and so on. Like, you're thinking, shooting, surviving in every game with a gun, but Half-Life really wanted it to feel more like an organic engagement with dangerous and challenging circumstances, which is admirable. Just, as I feel like I may have said here, or maybe I just wrote it somewhere, like, that's really something that's more interestingly and completely realized on one point in a game like Stalker, which is really much more like an old conventional first-person shooter than the memes sell it as. Like, they tell you it's, like, open world and, like, crazy limit-pushing openness experience. Like, no, it's more like Far Cry and Halo. It's a very linear game. It's very obvious where you're meant to be going next at any point in Stalker. It's just a, like, straightforward shooter with side quests, basically, and the levels are connected and loop back to each other, like a Metroidvania, but we don't use that dumb word here, do we? But yeah, so, again, this level is just super pretty, and there's this interesting contrast, as always, like the beautiful, colorful, vibrant nature we push through, and these extreme bold guys from Prometheus built it stuff, which is just like hard geometric shapes jutting out of that. They just mastered this place. The implication is that they actually built the natural parts too, but, you know, when it's time for business, they just lose all sentimentality and become these brutalist guys, which is quite cool, I think. Again, the idea of... I'll get back to the Half-Life point in a moment, but it's this idea which is interestingly meta in Halo, which is, as I've been saying, like, everything is a room in Halo in the sense that everything is built, everything is constructed, and yeah, like, Halo is an entirely contrived circumstance, is an entirely contrived environment within the lore or meta, whatever. Like the labs in Portal were all built, Halo was all built, the natural parts and the unnatural parts, and I forget exactly the context in which that came up, but I remember getting annoyed at people not picking up on that, you know, oh yeah, Breath of the Wild, that's what I was going to talk about. Maybe I already have, did I mention it a minute ago? I don't know, but when I said Stalker, the other game that came to mind, if you think should survive, like overcoming organically emergent challenges, like Breath of the Wild is amazing at that. Like Half-Life was basically simulating, and even Half-Life 2, frankly, was just like crudely simulating what Breath of the Wild would eventually do very organically, which is like just give you like a world that reacts based on very coherent rules that it's very strict with, and just like let you make your own answers. Like you actually have an opportunity to think, not in the sense of like, okay, you have to like mentally model the designer of the room and think of the one thing he wanted you to do. Like, no, you can actually just like break physics in the room and just do something which makes sense but would be totally unexpected to solve a problem. In Half-Life 1, what annoys me is its puzzle element, which is very explicitly and pointedly, you go into a room and you have to find the thing which is not a door, which you have to use as a door. The thing which is not a ramp, which you use as a ramp, like, oh look, there's a broken pillar and it leads up to a vent, I wonder what I'm meant to do. They just, you know, they can only do so much, I sympathize, but still, it's just frankly not that interesting. I think that Half-Life is only so interesting to go back to because of this. Halo is much more open, it errs on the side of being easier, which I like. There is no like every few minutes I get stuck in a room and have to think, okay, what do I like, what button do I push to open the thing that's not a door to get out of here? Like, no, it just goes, and it only hits me with situations which I can engage with on the level in which the game is fun and what it was built to be good for. And yeah, Half-Life 2, despite the new technology, the ideas were like there in a like baby form, like those embarrassing to think back on puzzles where it's like, put the barrels on the thing to make a seesaw and lead you out. Like, yeah, it's cool tech demo stuff, but then like, okay, why didn't you build a game out of that? After that, you just like sold TF2 hats and Counter-Strike knife skins for 20 years and then got taken over by Indians. And then, you know, Nintendo, they just sit around making their weird lunchbox machine and all their silly stuff for 20 years, just idling while Half-Life 2 becomes like the prestige game of all time. For some reason, I remember on Reddit, it was like the best game ever for a long time. That was a weird phenomenon. I just don't know. The 2000s were pretty bad. 2010s as well. But anyway, yeah, then Breath of the Wild is the game that just like fulfilled the promise or the IOU that Half-Life 2 set, where it's a game of like, okay, look, here's a little like, here we have physics in game now. And yeah, just like you look at Half-Life 2 and yeah, physics, and then what? Like, frankly, no one like fulfilled that IOU a physics game. There was like nothing of interest ever done with it until Breath of the Wild, if you ask me. I think it earns the title of like first game to actually like implement physics in a way that isn't a retarded meme. And yeah, it's very much a problem of the Half-Life thing of like, I mean the Valve thing, to get back to where I think I was going, which is that Valve always had this serious problem of being the opposite of Bungie in that, you know, they were very good at creating like a kind of artisanal vision as an afterthought to frame their craft, but it doesn't change the fact that the craft came first and was primary, and they would ultimately be willing to shed the like art and vision and purpose, and that is exactly what happened to Valve and why they don't make games anymore. Like, people say it's inspiring. I think it's like sad and awful and a sign of what was eventually going to come, that like there were guys in Half-Life who were like programming cockroach AI and stuff, and they're like, whoa, that's a detail you wouldn't have even noticed while you were playing. Isn't it so awesome they put in that kind of effort? They don't make them like that anymore. That's why it was better. You need more superfluous detail. Like, no, this isn't why Valve were good. This was like why they were always, this was the seed of badness inside them all along. There was no real reason to make cockroach AI in Half-Life. It was just like an autist who needed a master to wrangle him, but they weren't wrangling their own autists, so they were a company that was constantly producing technical wizardry which was fucking pointless, couldn't even be put to use by other people. Like, Half-Life 1's cockroach AI, does that become like open source or anything? No, it's just this like retarded incidental detail in a game which is not about that, which just sits there unnoticed for a long time, then some idiot gets a bunch of views on YouTube for pointing it out, and we all act impressed, but no, that's, like, again, tragic is the word that comes to my mind. Honestly tragic that, yes, a craftsman-run enterprise is a terrible, terrible idea. The guy who made the cockroach AI should have been the slave of a guy like Hideo Kojima or something, because he would either work that into the thing entirely or tell him, like, no, I'm going to have you, like, program how the ghosts react to being pissed on or something. Because he has genuinely great off-the-wall ideas which actually make a kind of sense. And to bring it back to the more broadly where I was going, yes, id, Bungie, and Valve all created incidentally similar products, but Valve and id are of a kind as creators. Bungie stands apart from both, but more closely resembles Valve because, again, Valve and Bungie both had the craft and the kind of vision working together, but for Bungie in their golden age, which I consider to be like this, Myth, and Marathon, I suppose, it was always the craft serving a vision, and then what happens, so craft serves the vision, so they create these complete works, and I'm sorry, I'm just losing myself keeping track of which company I'm talking about. Half-Life, Valve fell apart because it was all a bunch of craft with, like, vision that they dragged along for the laughs, and they were happy to have that there, but if that guy was in charge, like the story guy or whoever, and he was just able to, like, yell at and fire people, we would have gotten Half-Life 3, and then they would have made another thing. But instead, it's like this utopian but awful idea of, like, an open craftsman's workshop, and the story guys are treated like another group of guys who just have, like, these neat projects they fuck around on. And if the crafts guys can be fucked actually putting together something cohesive, they can work some story into it. That is obviously a terrible model, and why Valve failed as an artistic enterprise, but were able to build legs as a commercial one, which is ultimately what they are now. They're just like a welfare scheme for a tribe of Indians, as far as I've heard. Like, they just take it over and they eat the Steam income when you buy games on Steam. Just a bunch of, like, clannish middle managers are eating your money. And on the side, they'll, like, subsidize a bunch of, like, autistic engineers in a room somewhere making cockroach AI, which you may see in Half-Life Alyx 2 in 2030. And then in 2032, there'll be a video essay. Weird details you missed in Half-Life Alyx 2. Look at the cockroaches, they respond intelligently a light. And, like, yeah, that's great, but it was all just, like, pointless. This company doesn't have, like, a really good justification for existing anymore. Like, honestly, if it were me, I would just, Valve are a bunch of slaves. They need a slave master who will put them to some kind of use. God damn it. Like, where's a guy with vision? Bring him into Valve and put him in charge or something. I don't know. Get some guy, give him a team of craft slaves, and tell him to get some kind of results. We almost need, like, EA to buy them. No, like, I don't even know. Just the Japanese corporate model obviously works and the American ones don't. Bungie was better than Valve because they were very determined to, like, finishing artisan products, and that did work. That got them Myth, that got them Marathon, and that got them Halo done. But where that got crushed actually is because they did get bought by, Microsoft, and they were basically had, like, an EA-like relationship where they're like, okay, sales, shareholders, and all that. And it did create a problem, and unfortunately Halo, as, like, a complete vision, did get rather mangled along the way by a few unfortunate incidental things, which I could talk about down the line eventually. It's funny, every potentially interesting... Okay, I know what I'm going to talk about next, so let me just finish that last thought. Halo has, like, vision work. I think it only really purely was in CE, and even then it was kind of hampered by just how hard it was to get the game finished, but I feel like ultimately it was like a vision-driven work, and it succeeded entirely at being what it wanted to be. 2 was more ambitious, a bit compromised, but still quite cool. And by 3, Bungie was kind of falling apart and just like limped over the line. I think that Combat Evolved, this game, is pretty much a perfect and complete vision, which within it contains everything Halo is meant to be and say, just not necessarily in an explicit form. 2 gets more explicit on a few points, but isn't like necessary, just everything is here in this one game. And then things get more confused if you try to read it as a whole. Like, think of like this as the one pure Halo work, and the rest as like trying and not always succeeding at expanding. And Beyond Bungie don't even bother. It got taken over by a new vision guy who just frankly didn't like what Halo was and wanted it to be something else. But that's a talk for another time. Where I'd want to go now is that... Sorry, what exactly was I going to say there? I'm sorry, what was I going to say? Yes, sorry. It's very... Sorry, I knew what I was going to say and then I didn't. Let's just play the level again. I'm sorry, we've been stuck in this brutalist room for like 10 minutes while I talk. But I get the impression at least a couple of you enjoy listening to me speak longer form, so for you, yeah, just enjoy the, me bouncing around in a room. But for the rest of you, sorry, if you skip those parts and just like watch the first couple of minutes of every video, I really don't mind. If you're not enjoying it, don't bother. I really, really believe that it's only ever going to be interesting to a certain kind of person. Like, the idea here is basically like, if you've read my stuff and you just want to get like a more general picture of how I see this thing, this is here, like, a thought I have with critics of a lot of things is like, I wish I could just talk to them. Do you get that? Like, I just wish like, okay, like, how easy would it be to just like expose how idiotic most people are about, like, we all know everyone talking about video games on the internet is an idiot, for example. Like, what if you just got them to like try to talk at length without like all their editing flash and so on? Like, would they just sound like very boring or very dumb, or would they struggle to draw thoughts out of their head? Or, I don't mean it as like a test, it's more just like, okay, I get you when you're presenting, but what if you just like think? I want to reach your mind, not like reaching the like polished products of it. And yeah, I just want to like show what it looks like to engage in mental, to be like in mental motion in response to this thing, which is what I tried and probably failed to convey in my do-over of the first episode, which is, yeah, just, if you like see me talk a bit about the game and you want to see like, okay, what is like going on in Anthony's head, like, let's just get a more like clear and casual run of like what it means to engage with a game in the sense he's trying to convey, like, yeah, just fire up one of these and yeah, I'm not like bullshitting you or reaching, like, this is how I think, you can just hear me right here. This is my mind responding to a video game, trying to give you my rendition of a casual look at something. And yeah, I think that a lot of YouTube, it's like affectations of casualness, but you know, everyone's still editing and writing and so on. Like, where is the like casual, intelligent look at anything? I think that that should be a very much in-demand thing. I guess that the best we get is like, okay, someone you like gets on a podcast, but then like, who actually like listens to podcasts? My trouble is just that on any subject I care about, I feel like I know more, or I just like don't care because it's someone else's opinion. Like, who I'll want to listen to is like, I don't know, someone I respect in a certain craft maybe, I don't know, like, I'll listen to Thomas777 talk about politics because he's very interesting and novel and he knows more than me there, but like, if I wanted to listen to someone talk about video games, what would I do? I don't know. I found this like podcast related to video games once. It was by some of those guys associated with the like, I don't remember what it is, but it was some like based gaming podcast attempt thing, and like they did like a Halo episode and they're just talking about Weapons Sandbox, and I'm just like, what the fuck is the point of this? Like, I know more than these guys. But yeah, if I just like, maybe if I was tired, I wanted to like see another intelligent mind in motion run against something I've already thought through just for the sake of it. But that's the thing, like, I really don't even think that there is like again, gaming YouTube is an ocean. We're surrounded by water, but we can't drink. Like, okay, I just want something that I can, like, tolerate. I want to see someone thinking about video games in a way that is pleasing to me. I can, like, recognize the thought going on and engage with it, be stimulated by the appreciation of these things from novel angles, and there's just nothing there. And yeah, just so I'm being the change I want to see in the world. This isn't me doing like serious work. I actually intend to step up sooner or later, I know I keep saying, and edit things, speak more purposely about things, possibly script and so on, but if you just find yourself thinking, okay, I just want like a let's play which is thoughtful and not just like idiotic babble or noise or like a vlog or like a hangout session with some like non-presence person who's just like in at the right time to get established in this, like, okay, where's the like thoughtful run through of a game? I can't find any, so here's this. And to at least a couple of you, I hope that this is that. I'm sorry, that was probably a very boring run of thought, but again, it's casual. I just let thoughts run. Where was I going to go? A thought just came to me then when I was saying that. But yeah, I guess like, a Let's Play is really a thing anymore, or did they evolve into streams and then streams, the idea is that they're social and so on? I don't know. You know what I mean, you know how I talk about art in general, you know what I see as lacking in how we do it, and you know what I like to bring to this thing, and this is me doing that in a way that's very casual for me and gets me in the mood to do more things, to just keep looking at stuff and having a good time doing this, sharing things I care about with you, and yeah, hopefully I can just get in the mood to do more, and hopefully you find something here that you don't find elsewhere. Every nice comment does make me feel more like doing more of this, so if you enjoy, please do feel free to let me know. It makes me feel quite nice. There's not going to be any comment I don't appreciate, even if you don't like them. If you say why, I do take that seriously, especially like audio issues and stuff. I'm very self-conscious about that. I know I've erred a few times on that point. But yeah, here's a nice, cool, monolithic piece of weird video game architecture. And let's turn on Needful Vision. We're back inside the gaming PC. And it's purple, even though that's the Covenant color. What is going on here? Don't ask me. This is how it's meant to look. Like this, you can imagine the guy from Prometheus made it. This is like what the House of Saud would make if we put them in charge of like colonizing outer space. Very bad, very tragic, very awful that this happened, but yeah, this is a very cool looking area in the game. I'm sorry if I got way off track of talking about the game. I always worry if I'm going to have anything to talk about, and then I just talk about everything but the game because the thoughts just run. There's so much I've been looking at in the time since I last made one of these, and yeah, I could just go and go and go. So tomorrow I'll probably make more of this. I could do other things. I don't know. There's a lot to say. If at least one of you enjoys this, it's worth it. And if none of you do, well, I guess I just need to make it better, don't I? Why don't we look for the next save now, and then I'll cut this off and go to bed. How long? It's gonna be a while now, I imagine, but yeah, this is a cool bit. We saw down the drop, and now we have to work down manually from inside here. And clever speedrun trick, you can actually jump all the way down without dying if you know how to bounce yourself off things. But yeah, we got our checkpoint. Let's quickly look at this guy. He's cool. Now he's a bird. I prefer him this way. And we got our checkpoint, so I'll call it here, but yeah, hope you enjoyed this one, and yeah, we're just back, and I'm hopefully going to do this more regularly, and expect some more serious stuff shortly. Hope you enjoyed this. Thank you.